The beginning of the story is a picture where the main character sits calmly at his desk, peering at unusual images. Suddenly, someone approached him, stepping right on one of the paintings, and soon asked if the guy liked protecting others. The three bullies found out that he likes to protect people, since one of them put his things on the hero's table, and now they were wondering if someone would protect him. The hero looked with displeasure at the hooligans approaching him. This situation arose because he stopped them from bullying the guy, and now they decided to take out their anger on the main character. The rescued guy was so helpless that he couldn't even utter a word. One of the hooligans pushed the hero because he did not answer his question. The determined guy decided not to waste time and responded to one of them with a powerful blow to the jaw with his fist. Under the influence of a strong blow, the enemy fell to the ground and struggled to get up. All these events happened because the main character does not tolerate those who threaten him or other people. Having been hit back by one of the bullies, the main character also received his share, feeling a blow to his own face. Brave and angry hooligans gathered to inflict more damage on the guy, taking advantage of the fact that he responded to one of them with a blow. At this time, students began to enter the classroom, and one of the guys learned that Jin Tion used to be the best student in high school, but now for some reason he got involved in fights. Another girl came to Jin's defense Tion, begging the hooligans to let him go. A blue-haired guy named Fabian kept a close eye on her and tried to stop her from interfering in Jin's affairs. Tion. The guy believed that Jin was not worthy of her attention, and she should not interfere in his problems. The girl believed that it was none of his business, and he had no right to judge like that. Hearing her words, Fabian became angry, not understanding what she found in Jin Tian, and decided that tomorrow he should no longer appear at school. Suddenly, the teacher burst into the classroom, demanding that the fight be stopped immediately, otherwise he would inform the students' parents. Sometime later, the beaten hero was walking with his father, who expressed bewilderment when his son would stop causing him problems. Jin began to make excuses, explaining that the hooligans attacked him first, breaking his watch in the process. The father did not see anything special in this and promised to buy a new watch, since their business was finally getting better. At this time, a crowd of people gathered near Kim's father's store, shouting that chaos was happening here and someone had destroyed the store. With horror, the father and son realized that someone had made a mess in their store. Concerned, Jin Tion hurried through the crowd to find out what happened to the store. The guy began beating those who were involved in the destruction of the store. There were many villains, and one of them grabbed the brave boy. The crowd beat him mercilessly, sparing no effort. Soon the clock was finally broken due to the ongoing fight. Kim's father begged the bandits not to touch his son and offered to beat him if that was what they wanted. Approaching closer, the bandit announced that he was not going to attack the old man, and the problem was that he had not paid his taxes and now must urgently pay, and if the money did not arrive by tomorrow, they threatened to destroy all his property. If the funds are not received, they threatened to completely destroy everything that belongs to the old man. Fortunately, the bandits left without resorting to additional destruction, and the hero, defeated again, tried to rise, and his caring father supported him. Some time passed, and the main character lay on his bed, thinking about the reasons behind so many bad people in this world. His father, sitting on the bed next to him, reminded him that proper nutrition prolongs life, and he assured the guy not to worry. Tomorrow he will ask his neighbors to borrow money, and fortunately, business has been going well lately, and perhaps they will be able to pay off the debts. Suddenly the son hit the bowl of soup with force. The plate shattered into many small pieces and fell victim to his sudden outburst of anger. After this, he ordered his father to leave the room, viewing him as a weakling. Sighing heavily, the father left, closing the door behind him. The embarrassed hero continued to lie on the bed and reflect on his powerlessness, and he only sought to protect his family, and it all seemed incomprehensible. Insatiably angry, he turned to a higher one, if he existed at all, asking him to take notice of them, since only those who carried goodness within themselves suffered, while the freaks remained unpunished. After uttering these words, huge thunder was heard and lightning struck straight into their house. The blow was so strong that it struck Jin Tian, causing him to wince in pain. At the moment of the lightning strike, his watch began to transform. They were transformed into a more modern device that did not at all resemble the previous watches. The watch made a sound warning that the scan of the owner was complete, after which the program of implanting memory into the watch began. The next morning the alarm clock rang, and the hero felt as if he had woken up from a long sleep where he had a divine clock. Looking at his hand, he discovered that the watch was right on it. This dream turned out to be a complete reality. A system appeared in front of the shocked hero, welcoming him, announcing that it would now exist with him in the watch, and despite its unstoppability, it does not discharge and is protected from damage, automatically recovering if necessary. The stunned hero could not understand who was talking to him, and how such protection was even possible. The system in the watch presented itself as a clock and displayed a map of the hero's abilities, including intelligence, physical strength, spirit, luck, and unusual abilities. Amazed Jin Tian began to look at his abilities and tried to understand why one of the values was so weak, as if the system only highlighted unusual abilities. Clock explained that the fact that the master's intelligence, stamina, intelligence, and luck are superior to others is known to him, and the unusual abilities refer to his unique qualities, such as excellent mastery of martial arts or the ability to work with magic. The guy realized that he needed supernatural abilities to survive successfully. The clock system was here to observe how the creature calling itself human used its abilities for rational or emotional exploration, and the clock offered its assistance, starting with basic information. This was first aid intended for a beginner. With amazement, the hero watched the projections, which seemed impossible using modern technology. Looking at his watch, he realized that all these changes had occurred after a lightning strike. Gathering his strength, he decisively pressed the button located on the case. A new reality began to unfold before him, bathed in bright blue light, and something new began to form in front of the guy. In his first kit, it was possible to increase his strength by 5 if he put the book to his chest, and the witty guy instantly realized that ordinary people had 5 points of strength, and if he added 5 more, he would become twice as strong as ordinary people. However, he did not trust such simple methods of increasing strength too much, and in ordinary life, increasing the level of strength by placing a book on his chest sounded too unrealistic. At this time, someone on the street shouted at his father, asking if he had prepared the money, but he did not have the required amount, and he offered to give half as a down payment. Angry, Jin Tian realized that these were the same bandits. They harassed Kim's father, demanding payment of the debt. Despite the beating, he had no money to satisfy their demands. At that moment, the guy realized that his father was upset by his own words, and he was not a weakling, but simply very worried about his son. The angry bandit started kicking the poor man because he couldn't pay his debt. Jin Tian knew he couldn't just sit back and do nothing. However, his eye was caught by a book lying on his bed. As he pressed the book to his chest, he thought to himself that he was probably crazy for believing such things. A mysterious energy enveloped him, and he felt changes in his body. He immediately ran to his father to help him. Quickly approaching one of the bandits, he dealt a devastating blow directly to his head. A fight began, in which Jin now actively participated Tian. When he arrived, he couldn't believe how much stronger he had become, and this book really worked. The attacker, trying to make an attack, jumped on the guy, trying to hit him with his fist. However, Jin Tian stopped him with just one movement. Grabbing the villain's hand, he began to twist it, causing him acute pain. The guy screamed, warning that next time he wouldn't even have one arm, and threw the enemy to the floor. Soon there was only one villain left, but no less important. The criminal decided to run away, considering the guy a madman with whom it was better not to mess. Jin Tian was not going to let him go so easily and instantly gave chase. With a slight movement of his hand, he slammed the villain into the ground, and he howled in pain. While holding the criminal, the hero warned that the next time they met him, something terrible would happen. The blow aimed at the ground went straight to the villain's head. Jin Tian's strength and physical capabilities were twice that of an ordinary person, and his punching strength was 150 kilograms, like a professional boxer, and his bone strength was twice as strong. One of the bandits came to his senses and pulled out a knife, trembling with fear. Looking at his brother, who had become a victim, the villain decided to attack the hero from behind. Kim's father stood up for his son, preventing the criminal from hurting him. The guy responded by punching the villain in the face, intending to force him out of the game. The defeated bandits admitted their sins, calling themselves the most evil people of South Street, and vowed not to bother Jin Tian's family anymore. The hero was satisfied with this apology and ordered them to leave the place. The bandits, thanking the hero for his mercy, began to leave, realizing that they were lucky. The father could not believe how much his son had changed overnight, and was surprised to note that he had not even eaten anything. A crowd of neighbors approached, ready to take care of the family, since Kim's father's son was marked as the protector. At that time, the guy realized that when his family was bullied, no one came to help. The son dragged his father, asking him to prepare breakfast, since the student had to head to school. When the hero entered the house, he began to blow on his fist, feeling severe pain. The father worried about whether his son was injured, arguing that he should be less impulsive next time. Jin Tian realized that now no one would dare touch his family, since the son would protect his father. It suddenly became clear that Kim's father did not want his own son to protect him, but only wanted him to be okay. The father's words struck the main character, and he could not tear himself away from his gaze directed at his father. The hero was very worried about his words yesterday, and he did not want to consider his father a weakling. The father, shedding a stingy manly tear, admitted that at his age he, too, was a snarl, and that was normal. Sometime later, events moved to school. The door to one of the classrooms was closed, and the guy realized that he was late for class. But as soon as the door opened, water fell on him. The hero reacts instantly, deftly moving away from the bucket of water and avoiding getting wet. The whole class watched as a whole bucket of water was almost poured on him. Angry Jin Tian wants to know who did this. It turned out that it was a hooligan with whom there had previously been a conflict. The hero, seeing the smug scoundrel, immediately realized that it was Li Chong. Anxious girl, Yu Zhanjin runs into the classroom, expressing concern for Jin Tian, and explains that someone was trying to make fun of him, and she suggests calling the teacher to resolve the conflict. The hero thanks Yu Zhanjin for your concern. The girl tells the teacher that Li Chong and his friends are bullying their classmates. The teacher turns his attention to the bucket of water and asks what Li Chong was going to do. Indignantly, the tormentor asks what Li Chong is up to. The smug scoundrel pretends not to know who did it, and the intern, Miss Chen, replies that it is none of her business and she is not responsible for him. Miss Chen was even more indignant because the trainees were also teachers, and she was trying to understand why he was bullying his classmates. Suddenly, Li Chong warned the woman, giving her one last chance not to interfere in his affairs, and the word of his uncle would decide the fate of the trainee. Hearing this, she remembered that Li Chong's uncle was the leader of Su Xiaocai, and if she bullies him, her career will end, but if she ignores the bullying, the teacher will not go unpunished either. Confused, the girl did not know what to do. At this time, Jin Tian walked over and assured the teacher that he was fine and she shouldn't worry about it since it was her first class after the morning break. The hooligans mocked enthusiastically, seeing that the teacher was powerless in front of them, and began to laugh loudly. The hero at that time realized that it was better for students to solve their problems on their own. Sometime later, the lesson began. The guy sat down at his desk and discovered that his textbook was missing. Under the table, he found a note saying that his book was in the toilet. A joyful Li Chong exclaimed that he forgot to write that the book was in the women's restroom. The tension increased with every second, and the hero was even more irritated by the scoundrel's bullying. The head girl asked everyone to submit their homework to give to the teacher. The bully noticed that some of them couldn't even find their textbook, and apparently they also had problems with their homework. Suddenly, a classmate handed something to the hero. With surprise, Jean Tion found that this was homework. Attached to it was a note in which an unknown person offered to help with his homework, despite the fact that he could not help with the problems he had the day before. It turned out that the unknown guy was the guy whom the main character helped avoid a fight with hooligans. After 45 minutes, the lesson finally ended. At recess, Li Chang approached the hero, as he expressed a desire to make peace and go together to look for the guy's book. For a moment, Yu Zhanzhan approached the main character, defending him, figuring out why Li Chang was like this. It wasn't really that scary, they were just going to talk. However, the hero had not yet decided how to take revenge, and did not want to involve others, and if something happened, then let it happen to him. At this time, another guy watched Jean Tion interact with Yu Zhanzhan, experiencing rage and seeking revenge. The girl closely watched the hooligans and the hero, worrying about the possible consequences. She was alarmed by the situation and was looking for ways to help. Suddenly, a guy appeared in front of her, asking where she was going. The lady asked Fabian to let her through, but he had a question and wanted her help. Fabian began to smile sinisterly, thinking that he didn't want her to approach the teacher because it might lead to Jean Tion will receive punishment. Meanwhile, events continued in the women's restroom. The hooligans mocked the hero and insisted that his textbook was somewhere here. The hero asked the bully to help him find a textbook, and Li Chang was only happy about this, and they went to the toilet together. The hero's friends stood near the door and did not let anyone out. Going to the toilet, Jean Tion immediately asked where his textbook was. The bully behind him was trying to put a bucket on his head. With a slight movement of his hand, the hero broke through the bucket and hit the bully in the face. He realized that glasses probably increase the strength of bones, skin, muscles, and increase the pain threshold. The indignant Li Chang took a mop and swung at the hero. However, the mop broke into pieces. Shocked, the bully did not understand how Jean Tion was able to do this and who he really is. Today, our hero made it clear that he intends to take revenge for all the students who were bullied by Li Chang. The loser, pressed against the wall, began to threaten, claiming that his uncle was an important person, and if he was beaten, he would tell everything. Preparing for the next blow, our hero declared that then he would simply kill him. Another bully watched what was happening, wondering what Jean Tion is truly crazy. A few minutes later, Jean Tion was leaving the women's restroom when another bully noticed him. With selfless confidence, Jean Tion invited him to get his friends out of the toilet. Unexpectedly for the bully, he rushed to the toilet to see his friends. Horrified, he discovered his comrades in an unconscious state. Meanwhile, Yu Zhanzhan continued the conversation with Fabian, who did not let her pass. Fabian did not want to let the girl go, fearing that she was doing something vile, and tried to understand what she found in Jean Tion. Angry guy claimed he was better than Jean Tion was ready to argue on this score. Suddenly, someone approached the blue-haired guy and asked what was the matter. It was Jean himself, Tion, interested in finding out what Fabian considers him worse at, and inviting him to continue. Joyful Yu Zhanzhan expressed her joy that Jean Tion is fine. The hero was grateful to her for her concern. After his words, the girl remained embarrassedly silent. She reminded him that the lesson had already started, and it was time for him to return to his place. Fabian, excited by the events, reflected on how Jean Tion was able to return unharmed, and also wondered where that gang, the Three Evils of South Street, was that attacked Jin's store Tion, and why nothing has been heard about them for a long time. Fabian's phone received a message from the gang. It said that Jean Tion is crazy, and he almost killed them, and they better stay away from him, even if he pays them, because they can't help him, and their lives are more valuable. The persistent guy was unaware that this small group of people was collaborating with him. He was also worried about where Li Chong and the others were and why they didn't show up for class. The lesson has already started, and Miss Chang announced the topic of the lesson. Suddenly, the door burst open, and the bullies asked the teacher for permission to skip class today. The whole class was shocked by the condition of the bullies, and they had never seen such a beating before. Even the teacher was surprised and tried to figure out what happened to the children. Classmates began to guess that this trio had been bullying everyone for a long time, and Jean Tian seems to have avenged them all. With some trepidation, one of the bullies confessed to Fifth that they had been beaten by Jean Tian. The hero immediately asked him to weigh his words, warning that after school they could be in danger. Realizing that the danger had not yet passed, they admitted that they themselves had fallen and injured themselves. Miss Chang asked one of her friends to take the victims to the hospital, and they were excused from classes today. At the same time, classmates thanked the hero who dealt with this trio and was now their idol. Only one classmate was unhappy, Fabian, and he believed that their confrontation was not over yet, and he would be able to take revenge. While leaving school, a friend began to question Li Chong about why he did not give him the opportunity to say that Jean did it Tian. He replied that otherwise he might be expelled from school, and he wanted to keep other methods of revenge. An excited classmate wanted to know what their plans were now. Li Chong's first plan was to treat the wound and then go look for his cousin, a serious gangster who could smooth things over. Events continued to unfold at school, and it was already 17:20. The joyful hero calmly walked along the corridor during a break. Suddenly someone asked if he was going to study late, and the guy said no, because he didn't see the point in it. Yu Zhanjin immediately objected, arguing that studying until late is a way of self-discipline, and in the end, even if a guy goes home and plays without getting into the top 100, he still has to study at night. Waving his hand, the guy tried to understand why the new class teacher was so annoying, and now he had to study at home instead of playing. Knowing that there was no point in studying, he had to hurry home to play. The system in the watch notified the hero that today his training level is 0, and therefore his superconvertibility level is also 0, and in order to acquire new abilities, he needs to study seriously. Not expecting such a turn of events, the hero was shocked by what he heard. As it turns out, superconvertibility is convertible points that can be exchanged for abilities. Points depend on the amount of material studied per day. For each acquired knowledge, the hero receives 1 point, and if he scores 50 points, Jean Tian will be able to acquire a new ability. This means that he needs to change his point of view and take his studies more seriously, since this is the only way to communicate with beings from the higher world. The explanation of the system was much clearer than the instructions he had previously read. Sometime later, events unfolded at Uncle Kim's diner. The father was surprised that the boy was still playing video games, especially considering that it was already evening, and since the death of his mother he had become a completely different person and could not even study normally. At the same time, Kim's father believed that it was better to talk to his son in order to prevent his future from being ruined. A moment later he stood at his son's door and knocked on it. Having received no answer, the father decided to open the door and saw something that surprised him very much. The focus guy continued to study and asked his father what happened. Kim watched with satisfaction as his son studied diligently and studied many textbooks. Turning around, Jean Tian explained to his father that he was not so stupid and had the opportunity to study better than others. The father felt uncomfortable, not used to the fact that his son began to study, and was slightly surprised. Suddenly the guy asked his father if he knew about one cool thing. The guy realized that people know very little about the world around him, and he previously believed that youth was meant for rebellion, carelessness, and entertainment. Now he realized that true youth is the pursuit of knowledge to innovate and contribute to the development of the world. After listening to his son, the father praised him and was glad that he began to study. Going out into the street, the father thought about the change in his son and decided to turn to a fortune teller, fearing that his son might lose his mind. At that time, the system reminded Jean Tian that if he took his powers as something ordinary, he might be disappointed. The guy explained that he had just started studying and should not be taken seriously. After his mother died, he stopped studying as hard as before. His mother wanted him to go out into the big world, studying for a brighter life, not for his parents. While reading the book, he cried, realizing how much he had forgotten its instructions, and to work hard for his future so as not to become depressed. Having calmed down a little, Jean Tion praised the system without revealing the reasons. He decided not to explain, but simply watched as the system figured out the reasons for his disorder. Meanwhile, Li Chong sat on a bench late at night, wondering why his brother didn't come. Suddenly, a can of soda flew at his head. The wounded Chong could not understand what was happening, jumped up, and demanded to know who threw it. A group of people came up to him and called him bro. One of the guys wanted to know who beat Li Chong, since his brother was considered an authority. Breaking into tears, Chong told his brother that he had been beaten by his classmate Jean Tion, and he is obliged to take revenge. The brother took out a knife, deciding to test how strong Jean was. Tion is on defense. Soon the brother asked to bring Jean Tion to the park behind the school, where he was going to deal with him. Jean Tion agreed, assuring his brother that he would cope with this task. However, it is better to refrain from killing, because in the end, using a knife can easily lead to serious problems. Hearing these words, his brother immediately called him to him. The worried guy came closer to his brother. As if maddened, the brother hit his mutilated brother with full force and ordered him to be silent. After all, if he hit him, it means that the madman was going to destroy the scoundrel, because only he can control this area and not someone else. At the same time, the worried Li Chong understood that if something happened to Jean Tion, he would simply say that he did not know anything. Sometime later, morning came and events continued to unfold the next day. Lessons finally ended, and the school was empty, and classes lasted unusually long, and all the students were rushing to the internet cafe. The main character also planned to return home and study, and then he would have almost the required number of points, and he expected to earn 2 more today, and then decide what to buy. The system recommended that the guy exchange 15 points not for an ability, but for an increase in health, but the hero did not think so, and at the same time, the system believed that his stubbornness would lead to nothing. While Jean Tion was thinking about improving his abilities, his attention was drawn to an invitation from Yu Zhanzhan, who stood behind him. Turning around, the guy asked in surprise what she wanted. Yu Zhanzhan, blushing, invited Jean Tion to go home with her. Hearing this, the guy was amazed and thought that perhaps he was mistaken. Meanwhile, the girl's admirer heard all these words and became furious, and he could not understand what attracted Yu Zhanzhan to Jean Tion. Together they headed home, and at this time Fabian was thinking about how to take revenge on Jean Tion. From around the corner, Li Chong shouted at the protagonist, waving his hand. Turning his head, the guy didn't understand why Li Chong was calling him. The girl who was with the hero asked him not to pay attention and move on. Smiling, the guy only asked her not to worry, since he had something to do anyway. However, the girl blushed, thinking that the guy had touched her hand. The hero decisively approached the impudent guy and asked if he wanted to be beaten again, but it turned out that Li Chong had come to apologize. Jean Tion did not want to hear an apology, and according to his information, people like him had to remember the complaints from their uncles in order to be expelled. The culprit held an apology ceremony in the park behind the school and wanted the hero to come watch, and he thought that he was waiting for the moment of his last breath, since in a minute the hero would see everything for himself. Rejecting the idea of an apology ceremony, Jean Tion suggested that the enemy apologize right here. Li Chong began to persuade the hero, promising to apologize, but only in the park behind the school. Turning around, he smiled and shouted Yu Zhanzhan, who will borrow her boyfriend for a short time. While Jean Tion understood that it seemed that this guy had set a trap for him at the back of the park, he decided to see what he could do in this situation. The worried girl ran to the hero and asked him not to go there. Turning around, The guy grinned and said that everything would be fine, and she had better hurry home, especially since he had few friends at school, and this could be his chance to make friends with his classmates. The lady realized that all changes could not be so simple, and her classmate could not just change, and she decided that she should keep an eye on him. A few minutes later, events took place in Qinghe Park Shirsi. Li Chong, in anticipation, told the heroes that they were almost there, and there was just a little bit left. They were heading straight into a park surrounded by many trees. The hero was also attentive and noticed that they were getting closer and closer to somewhere, and it seemed that Li Chong actually had some kind of plan. Realizing this, Jin Tian asked where Li Chong was taking them. A classmate, as if distraught, shouted that everything was in order, they were already here, and he was ready to send him away. Several people approached the main character, planning to stab him in the head from behind. Feeling this, the guy instantly turned around. Avoiding a blow to the head, he maneuvered deftly. With a well-aimed movement, he jumped away from the scene, and he did not manage to land a single blow. The villains were surprised at how quickly the guy avoided the blows, like a monkey. Indignant, Jin Tian realized that they were trying to hit him in the back, as if they were going to kill him. Li Chong's brother noticed that Jin Chan is a smart guy, because they really tried to kill him. If he doesn't die today, he won't be able to stay here. Li Chong, while his brother was running, thought that he needed to get away so as not to be suspected. He warned that he would keep his eyes open and should not let him go. The brother was pleased with this, and he was looking forward to the start of the fight. The scoundrels took several clubs and prepared to beat him, believing that he was in trouble because of his connections with Li Chong's family. One of the blows hit the guy right on the arm, and he felt unbearable pain. Trying to avoid the blows, he quickly jumped along the ground, avoiding many blows. Even with the strength bonus, he still had a hard time dealing with a crowd of scoundrels. The embittered brother shouted that the guy had hard bones, but he had already broken many, and today he would break him too. The system at this time suggested that the hero start the exchange process. He needed only 10 points to get additional power points. But the hero ordered the system to wait because he wanted to save these points for later. At this time, Li Chong ran away from the scene in fear. On the way, he was met by Yu Zhanjin, who wanted to know why he was here alone and where Jin was Tian. Passing by, the scoundrel said that this was not the girl's business, but only theirs. The worried lady screamed for the scoundrel to tell her what was happening to Jin Tian, otherwise she will call the police. Hearing this, Li Chong realized that if she called the police, he would also be in trouble, and he began to think about what to tell the girl. He shouted that Jin Tian is surrounded by bandits, and he goes to ask someone for help. It is too late for his husband to call the police. The stunned girl heard this and screamed that she should quickly run to his aid. At this time, a fight was taking place, and the hero fought bravely with the villains who attacked him. The main scoundrel got punched in the face and admitted that the guy was a good fighter, but his two friends were doing a lousy job. Altogether, they began to attack the guy, wishing him death. Bravely watching as he is attacked, Jin Tian shouted that they were very slow. He hit his main enemy right in the face with his powerful blow. At this time, he thought that with 10 points of strength, avoiding the attacks of an ordinary person was quite easy. He hit the other two insolent people on the head with his fists. In pain, they dropped their clubs and began to fall to the ground. Grabbing the villains by the necks, the guy shouted that at the slightest movement he would break their necks. Approaching the scene, Yu Zhanjin and Li Chong watched closely what was happening. The girl was shocked by what was happening and sought to help her classmate. The bandits begged the main character to spare them, while the guy ordered the main villain to throw the pipe, otherwise he would break the necks of his partners. Hearing this, the scoundrel immediately threw away the pipe and noticed that Jin Tian really fights bravely, and soon he asked to let his brothers go. The heroes were surprised that the scoundrel turned out to be a rather devoted friend, and at the same time Yu Zhanjun ran to the guy to make sure that everything was okay with him. The stunned hero turned around after hearing her words and was shocked that she was here. Suddenly, the villain took out a knife from his back pocket. With incredible speed, he was approaching the hero, and if he did not look back, he was in danger of losing his life. When Jin Tian noticed that an enemy with a knife was approaching him, it seemed to him that his end was near. The enemy threw the knife with force, and red drops of liquid began to flicker around the hero. In the saving dash, Yu Zhanjin rushed towards the hero, shielding him with her body from the blow of the knife. With anger and despair, the hero shouted, calling the main scoundrel a bastard, and was about to defeat him with a direct blow to the face. An incredibly powerful hit thundered, followed by a cracking and crunching sound. The sound of the blow accompanied the fall of the main scoundrel to the ground, where he was defeated. The force of the impact created a resounding echo, heard many meters away from the scene. With a girl in Jin's arms, Tian stood there, stunned and not knowing what to do in this tense situation. With the last of her strength, the girl asked him to call the police. The scoundrel's friends rushed to the guy, not tolerating anyone touching their friend, and poured out on Jin, "Pull your deadly wishes." With great force, they hit the hero's head with metal pipes, but the pipes shattered into many small pieces. The villains were amazed, and they considered the main character a real monster. Overcome by fear, they quickly ran away, realizing that they were unable to defeat such a serious opponent. Taking the girl in his arms, Jin Tian carried her towards the hospital. Suddenly, the system warned the guy that the girl had acute wounds and many internal injuries, and the continuation of such shaking could cost her life. The only way out is to use the last point of superconvertibility to obtain a life-saving drug. The hero immediately asked the system how many points he needed for this, and the system replied that only 12 points were needed to treat injuries. Yu Zhanjun was the only one who cared about the hero at school, and he decided to sacrifice his last point in an attempt to save her life. The hero shouted without hesitation that he was making the exchange, thereby saving Yu Zhanjun. Superconvertibility points were exchanged for an injury cure pill, leaving him with only 1 point left. The system began to create a pill that could heal the girl's wounds. Taking the pill in his hands, the guy began to place it in the girl's mouth, trying to save her. Realizing that she was unconscious, the hero puzzledly wondered how she would manage to take the pill. The system suggested that if the girl is not in a deep coma, she can chew it and put the pill in her mouth, so she can swallow it. The hero was left in shock, not believing that he could chew the pill and then put it in his mouth. Having no other choice, he took the pill into his mouth and began to chew it. Touching her lips, he passed the pill into her mouth. A moment later, the girl came to her senses and thought that Jin Tian kisses her. She saw in front of her a handsome man who saved her life. After all the incidents, the hero felt uncomfortable and pulled away from the girl, and she woke up and was amazed at what happened. When she woke up, she was amazed that Jin Chan just kissed her. The embarrassed guy hastened to explain that he was just punishing that bastard and gave her a pill for a knife wound. Shaking her head, the girl tried to explain that this was not the case. At the time, she was amazed that her wound had healed so quickly, something that would have been impossible in real life. Giving his hand to a girl, Jin Chan wanted her to get up so he could explain the situation, and he hit the guy on the head, and now he needs to check his condition. Gradually, they approached the beaten scoundrel, who was lying on the ground. Seeing him, the guy realized that he was still unconscious. Having spanked the villain severely, he ordered him to wake up. The scoundrel gradually came to his senses and opened his eyes. As soon as the villain came to his senses, he immediately began to retreat, calling Jin Tian demon. The hero guessed that it was Li Chong, sent here to cause trouble for him. The scoundrel's two friends abandoned him and went away. The hero stepped with his foot on the villain's hand. In pain, he began to scream and beg to let him go. At the same time, the hero wanted the scoundrel to remember this day. Begging to be released, the villain begged for mercy, claiming that he was no longer going to bother Jin Tian. The hero asked him to be his six, and although the hero is strong, he needs an ally, and he does not want to take an ordinary bully, and he thinks that by controlling him, he can achieve his goals. The exhausted villain agreed to the terms, promising to obey Jin Tian. Before leaving, the guy warned that he could always find him, no matter where he was. The villain didn't expect that the guy would not only break the iron pipe, but also Li Chong would run away, and now some guy would command him, and he couldn't stand it. If he fails to defeat them in a fair fight, he will use dirty tricks. Yu Zhanzhan sought to understand whether Jin Tian really needed to get involved with such people. The hero objected, explaining that he simply did not have time to deal with these problems, and he expressed it just like that. While the guy was thinking about how to explain everything that happened to the police, because the girl could be sent for experiments and torture, the embarrassed girl at that time did not understand where the guy was looking. Blushing, the guy explained that she had understood everything wrong, and he looked at her wound. Starting to leave, Yu Zhanzhan stopped the hero. After all, she just wanted to know about her injury. What kind of pill is this, and how can such a medicine exist in the world if it doesn't even have a trace of injury? Closing his eyes, the guy only asked her if she thought he could hurt her. Objecting, the girl explained that she had never imagined that Jin Chan could hurt her. Turning to her, the guy also asked if she trusted him. Now he cannot tell her everything, but she needs to understand that now he is not the same as he was before. Surprised, the girl asked if he had really changed. As he began to walk away, the hero raised his hand and confirmed this, because now he won't give up and is going to take responsibility for his life. This made the girl happy, because Jin Chan has finally come out of the shadows, and now Annie can relax. The girl decided for herself that now she would not ask anything and would believe him, because she could wait for the day when the hero himself would tell her everything. While Jin Chan was embarrassed because he didn't understand why the girl was holding his hand. Smiling, Yu Zhanzhan asked not to make her laugh, and they went to school together. Now, from that moment on, the girl considered them best friends. Thinking, the guy realized that this was the best possible outcome of events. They walked together, holding hands, happily realizing that they were now best friends. The next day continued with new events, and the tortured Jin Tian came to class and was greeted by all his classmates. Jin was okay Tian and whether he slept at all last night. It turned out that he returned home very late yesterday, but, in fact, he spent all his points reading history books all night. A classmate wanted to know if he could work today. Given his condition, it would be better to go to bed. Luckily, summer holidays are in 2 weeks and final exams are just around the corner. Listening to the hero, Fabian realized that he could not allow Jin Tian to continue in the same vein. At the same time, Jin Tian was thinking that the final exams would start in 2 weeks and he should brush up on his knowledge. Suddenly someone approached the hero, slamming his hand on the desk. It was an indignant classmate addressing Jin Tian. Fabian exclaimed, inviting the hero to argue. The lady carefully watched everything that was happening, trying to understand what this impudent classmate was up to. He stated a condition, and if he received high scores in the final exams, then Jin Tian will no longer have to approach Yu Zhanzhan, and otherwise, Fabian will no longer talk to Yu Zhanzhan. Everyone knew that Fabian was one of the best students in the class and always got excellent grades, and it would be imprudent for Jin to agree to argue with him. Tian. When she heard about the dispute, the girl was dumbfounded, but she was pleased to see that they were ready to fight for her. One of his classmates approached the hero and asked him to disagree, claiming that Fabian was trying to provoke him, and after all, Fabian is one of the best students in the school and always gets excellent grades. The calm hero smiled and agreed. Classmates thought that Jin Tian may be nuts, and it was doubted whether he would seriously compete with Fabian. Even Yu Zhanzhan did not believe this and could not understand how Jin Tian will decide to compete with the best student of the school. The hero turned to her and assured her that there was no need to worry, and he was going to win this argument. He also recalled that Yu Zhanzhan is not a bargaining item, and Fabian should not use her as a prize in his competitions. Jin Tian decided to destroy his plans. From now on, Yu Zhanzhan was going to study with Jin Tian to help him win this argument. This fact surprised the hero, and he was once again convinced that he could not trust Fabian's conditions. Smiling, Yu Zhanzhan asked not to underestimate Yi, and Fabian may be among the best, but she is not that bad either. Hearing this, Fabian gloated, deciding to show her that even if she helps a loser, he will still remain the best. Sometime later, an angry classmate began calling his uncle Li. He wanted to ask him for help on the phone. It turned out that Fabian wanted to get answers to questions for the final exam from his uncle. An alarmed uncle warned that Fabian's father occupies a responsible position, and if he learns about his actions, trouble may arise. These questions were intended for one loser, so the impudent man asked his uncle not to worry. Sometime later, events moved to the library of High School Number 4. Yu Zhanzhan explained to the hero that in fact the solution to this issue is quite simple. She showed him many mathematical examples and explained in detail how to solve them. The hero carefully perceived her words and was surprised, because how could it be that higher mathematics turns out to be so simple? The girl knew that if he failed to cope with this, he had better not dream of winning. At the same time, the guy is confident that he will solve this problem, he just needs a little more time. Suddenly the system appeared and asked if the owner needed its help. In secret from the girl, the hero asked the system to explain to him whether it was possible to exchange his points for something that would increase his intelligence. It was possible, but not right now, since he didn't have enough points. A smart lipstick that added 2 intelligence points cost 10 points. The hero was indignant, not understanding how it was possible to pay 10 points for a 2-point increase in intelligence, and with such prices all his points earned last night would disappear. Determined to act, the hero realized that first he needed to increase his intelligence. So he used 10 points to increase his intelligence by 2 points. Taking the lipstick in his hands, he thought about what he needed to do to increase his intelligence. The system gave a hint, and in order to use the smart lipstick, he needs to apply it to his lips. At this time, the girl asked if he understood how to do this. Confused, the guy began to think about the answer and didn't quite know what to say. This answer confused the girl, and she thought that he was playing again and that he absolutely did not care about this competition. Angry, Yu Zhanzhan began to move away from him, feeling that her concern was passing by. Grabbing her hand, the hero shouted that he cared. The stunned girl wanted to understand what was happening. At that time, he started applying smart lipstick on his lips. Immediately after that, he easily answered the question the girl asked him. With surprise, she could not understand where he got the answer to this question. Going through the rest of the tasks, he realized that they were all very simple. The lipstick actually worked, and now he understood how to solve these problems, all thanks to the lipstick. With amazing speed, he began to instantly respond to examples from the book. Yu Zhanzhan couldn't believe it, and she thought that he was using lipstick to show his determination. Watching the guy, Yu Zhanzhan admired, and he was serious about changing his life, and she felt that she could not help but offer him help. If he was willing to motivate himself in this way, then she was also willing to go out of her way to help him. She found it hard to believe that Jin Tian has such a determined character. The guy didn't quite understand what she was hinting at, but he listened carefully to her words, inspired. A few days later, events unfolded in Kim's father's cafe. Father wondered how hard Jin had been studying lately. Tian. He was pleased to know that young people were beginning to appreciate the importance of learning at a young age. At this time, the uncle was looking at his father, seeing this as a great opportunity, and the owner was distracted, not paying attention to him. Suddenly the father noticed something unusual. Looking around, he was surprised not to find the man who had previously treated himself to food, and could not believe that he had left without paying. The uncle began filming everything that was happening, hoping that the father would notice the envelope, and in the end, he deliberately did not pay for the food. With a video like this, even if the father throws away the envelope, he will still be drawn into the investigation. The man took the envelope in his hands, not quite understanding what was inside, and thought that his uncle would sooner or later return for it. Sometime later, the hero was returning home from the library and was happy that he had scored well today. Arriving home, he asked the system what his current statistics were. At the moment, his intelligence was 8 units, physical strength 12 units, spiritual strength 7 units, luck 4 units, and his abilities remained at 0, and the hero wanted to know, after purchasing an item, whether it could be purchased again, or whether the system would randomly provide another one. After using a lipstick that increased intelligence by +2, his other statistics also increased, but the guy did not quite understand how to benefit from this luck. At this time, the father came into the house and asked if his son was hungry. Jin Tian immediately discovered an envelope that was lying on the nightstand and asked his father what it was. But the father did not know. It was just left by the visitor, and he thought that he would return, but the father waited until the evening, and he never came. Watching the envelope, the hero had a negative feeling. The father objected, reminding his son about the inviolability of other people's things. Opening the envelope, he discovered something unusual. The man also sought to find out what was hidden inside the envelope. As it turned out, there were tickets for the high school final exams, and Jin Tian instantly felt that someone was trying to set him up by slipping these tickets. The alarmed father immediately asked his son what would be the best course of action in this situation. Perhaps he should just throw them away. Unfortunately, this was of no use, and if someone left them on purpose, it could mean they had a plan in case the tickets were thrown away. The guy convinced his father not to worry, explaining that he had a plan to deal with this situation. Since he had the tickets, the guy thought, it would be stupid to throw them away without examining the contents. But if he read them now, it would be unfair in front of everyone, and thus, Jin Tian will betray Yu Zhanzhen, who helped him. Using his willpower, the hero finally decides to seal the envelope. And he begins to think about Fabian preparing for a possible defeat, since he is going to defeat his rivals solely through his own efforts. In the evening, the hero begins to get ready and takes an envelope with him, carefully hiding it under his jacket. He then leaves the house, warning his father that he is going for a walk and will be back soon. The father worries about his son, because he goes for a walk quite late. After some time, events develop at Fabian's house. Jin Tian is hiding behind a tree, watching the house of the son of the Minister of Education, and he needs to discover evidence of Fabian's involvement in ticket fraud, and if there is incriminating evidence, he can force him to remain silent. A little later, he notices someone approaching. A car approaches him, stopping at the gate of the house. Fabian leaves the house and asks the man in the car if he followed his instructions. The man confirmed his readiness and assured that all items were ready, including photographs of the delivery of the envelope. Fabian happy, and he believed that Jin Tian is focused on achieving better results than him, but he doesn't even know what Jin's actual task is. Tian. This plan was a far more threatening situation than any test. At the same time, the man wanted to understand how Fabian was going to win the argument if his opponent had all the tickets. This outcome suited Fabian, because even if he loses, he is not afraid, but if he loses, the rogue will be expelled from school, and then, finally, Yu Zhanzhen will pay attention to him. Even if he wins, Zhanzhen will not pay attention to him until Jin Tian stays at school. Hearing this plan, Jin Tian instantly knew it was time to begin his own plan. In light of the fact that Fabian sought to get rid of the hero, he, in turn, sought to get rid of Fabian's entire family. The gloating guy knew that even if Jin Chan will throw out the test, it won't stop him. This map contained all the evidence that the exam papers were still in his home. The hero, watching Fabian enter the house, thought about the possibility of having a backup copy of the memory card. Now is the time for him to take revenge. The hero started recording on his phone, and the system warned him that in this situation, the phone is only capable of recording silhouettes. He decided to trade 2 points to let the system do what it needed to do. After exchanging points, he acquired a small flying camera. The system assured him that recording would begin after the points were exchanged. In addition, the hero received an additional feature, invisibility. Hearing this, the hero immediately agreed to the deal, since invisibility would really help him in the current situation. At this time, Fabian returned home. The dissatisfied father demanded that his son kneel against the wall. The guy didn't understand what was wrong with his father, because he didn't do anything wrong. The father, in turn, began to scream when he learned that his son had asked Taigo to provide him with control tickets and could not understand how his son could do such a thing. With rage, he could not understand how anyone could ask him for this. The guy explained that he himself did not see the tickets and did it for a classmate, and at this time Jin Tian stood nearby, remaining completely invisible. Hearing this, Jin Shan really couldn't understand what was wrong with his classmate. The father shouted that it was impossible to do this and hit his son hard on the cheek with his fist. The hero was glad at this turn of events and mentally praised his father for the excellent slap in the face. Fabian couldn't believe his father dared to hit him, but his father not only hit him, but was also going to disqualify him from the exam. At this time, his son began to blackmail him, knowing that he was being paid for being so strict and respectable, but Fabian knew all the secrets about his father, about how influential people turned to him for high grades for their children. The information he heard amazed the father, and he continued to look into his son's eyes with alarm. In response to disobedience, there was another powerful blow with his fist on the same cheek. The father tried to justify his actions, claiming that all this was being done for the benefit of his son. The mother immediately ran up, interceding for her son, and began to worry that the father might harm him. The mother decided to end the conversation and ordered her son to go to his room. The indignant guy looked at his mother and father with evil eyes, gradually retreating into the room. The woman begged her husband to calm down, reminding him that this was their son, but the man, however, believed that his son was spoiled by his mother. Watching what's happening, Jin Tian realized that like the father, like the son, and if the father takes bribes, then the son will do similar things, and he justifies his actions, claiming that this is being done for the good of the family, but, according to the hero, this man is just trying to seem right. In his room, Fabian worried that it was all Jin's fault. Tian. At this time, the hero was watching him and thought that he was probably joking, because Fabian himself proposed this argument. A moment later, the dissatisfied guy put the flash drive in his desk closet. In anticipation, he began to wait, because just a little more, and he was going to defeat Jin Tian. Sometime later, he realized that he could not sleep, and decided to go to Jin and let off some steam. Fabian's excellent nightlife and asked to put a camera on him. Without hesitation, the system agreed and placed the camera directly on Fabian. The villain didn't even notice this, and the camera was already turned on in his body. Taking advantage of his invisibility, the hero decided to take the memory card from the closet. He also decided to give him an envelope with the answers to the tickets instead of a memory card. The guy was looking forward to the day when Fabian would open the box. Suddenly, Jin Tian accidentally touched a vase standing on the nightstand. The vase began to fall, and he instantly felt that something was wrong. Unfortunately, the vase broke, making a loud falling sound. Everyone heard this sound and turned around, directing their gaze to the second floor. With horror, Fabian realized that someone could be in his room. He immediately started walking up the stairs, trying to figure out who was there and how they got into his room, and maybe it was Jin Tian. The hero heard footsteps approaching, but the system warned him that no one would be able to see him. The problem is not being visible, but rather not arousing suspicion, and if someone sees him when he opens the box, all his plans may fall apart. Opening the door, a classmate yelled, wanting to know who was in his room. But there was a cat in Fabian's room, which accidentally knocked over a vase. He immediately picked up the cat, intending to throw it away. Breathing a sigh of relief, he thought that perhaps Jin Tian entered his room. Meanwhile, the scoundrel knew that this was impossible, because there were cameras installed in his house, and Jin Tian stood right in front of him, sticking out his tongue. A few seconds later, the classmate finally came out and closed the door. The hero finally got through it, but he didn't expect that a stray cat would appear at the most inopportune moment. At this point, the system explained that this was all due to an increase in the luck parameter. Human luck is the most fascinating of all characteristics, and with enough luck, even surviving a deadly situation can be possible. Leaving Fabian's house, the hero reflected on how important luck is in his characteristics. He later realized that he needed to increase each of these parameters, especially the ability that he had not used until now. A little later, he noticed the same cat that jumped into the window. The good-natured guy happily thanked the cat for the help he provided. Since the cat did not see the hero, she screamed in fear, thinking that someone was talking to her, although there was no one in front of her. The next moment, the cat instantly disappeared into a tree, trying to avoid the invisible hero. The surprised guy realized that he had scared the poor cat. At this time, the cat probably thought that the guy also had the ability to communicate with spirits. She realized that she needed to somehow contact him. The next day, events unfolded within the walls of secondary school number 4, and today's exam was an unusual citywide one. The leaders would take high places in the city rankings, and the director hoped that they would raise the honor of the school. Fabian watched the hero closely, wondering how he read the tickets. Grinning, he assumed that this was now the last exam of his life. Soon all the students headed to the exam room. The hero waited impatiently, because he could finally find out the result of his week-long preparation. Suddenly someone addressed him, and the guy instantly turned around. It was Yu Zhenjin, who sincerely wished him good luck. She encouraged him not to give up, promising help if he failed. The guy experienced sincere joy and gratitude to the girl. Gathering his will, he headed to the room where the exam was taking place. Some time later the bell rang and the exam ended. Jin Tian knew that the exam was not difficult for him, but he had to pretend that he did not know the answers. Classmates had a positive feeling about the protagonist's success in the exam. They even joked that after passing the exam, the hooligans would still bother the hero. Going outside, Fabian asked Jin Tian, "Is he ready?" Having called, Fabian reported the theft of tickets for the Intercity Unified exam and demanded an immediate investigation. Friends began to defend Jin Tian, claiming that the scoundrel is lying and that Jin Tian couldn't do something like that. Unknown people appeared, whom Fabian called. The villain rejoiced, confident that the hero had no witnesses and he was the only one who knew whether it was true or not. Jin Tian confirmed that he is the only one who knows the truth and has been waiting for this day for a long time. The workers asked Jin Tian goes to school with them, saying that he is accused of stealing exam papers. The guy gloated, waiting for the moment of expulsion from school. Classmates stood up for the hero, claiming that there was no evidence. The hero asked his friends not to worry. Then he stated that he wanted to report the theft and slander against a classmate, claiming that it was he who stole the tickets. The liar was indignant, denying the accusations. Another man stood up for Fabian, claiming that such an excellent student as Jin Tian, "I couldn't do that." The head of the evaluation team supported the hero, adding that only a useless student like Jin Tian could have done something like this. The security agreed with the manager's opinion. Li Chang gloated, considering his uncle the best. The uncle expressed the opinion that Jin Tian is still too young to properly negotiate with people. The director's son did a favor for his uncle and advanced in his career. The hero decided to start the show with evidence. The hero had evidence and wanted to meet with the director. Fabian was worried, trying to figure out how this thing got here. The uncle realized that Fabian had panic in his eyes, and that there was definitely something on the map, and he ordered him to be taken away because of slander against a classmate. Classmates stood up for the guy and asked not to take him away so that he could meet with the director. Teacher Chin came and said that if Wu Jin Tian has evidence, then he has the right to meet with the director, and the guards were embarrassed. Mr. Hu gave instructions to detain the hero, told the teacher to stay away from it or she would be fired. The teacher firmly stated that she was responsible for her students, and if Jin Tian is guilty, she will resign. The man who gave the order to take the hero away was confused. The teacher was no longer willing to compromise and expressed her determination. She stated that if she was fired, she would not let them have their way. Teacher Chan took the hero by the hand and offered to go to the director. The guards were also going to go with the teacher to check the charges. The man who gave the order expressed anger. The teacher took the hero and went to the director. The guards followed them. Fabian knew that his plan had failed, and that was the end. An investigation began in the director's office. The director listened carefully to the students and tried to understand what was happening. The hero handed over the memory card and explained that it showed the details of his plan. Fabian admitted that he staged the slander by framing Kim's father. The director inserted the memory card into the laptop and saw the envelope with tickets being handed over to Father Jin Tian. The director realized the situation and began to take action. After seeing the video, the principal realized that Fabian's father had taken the exam papers and asked if he had read them himself. Fabian thought about how lucky it was that the video was recorded in such a way that they avoided charges. He stated that he knew where the video was taken and wanted to frame his father. The hero decided that if the villain wanted to play, then they should also play big. The guy handed over another memory card to check. The card contained information about how Fabian's family did business. In the video, the father said that Fabian ordered the sheets to be stolen so that his son would get high scores. The director was amazed by the irrefutable evidence from Jin Tian. Everyone was confused, not expecting such evidence from the hero. Looking into the eyes of the scoundrel, Jin Tian asked if he wanted to say something. Jin Tian stopped the scoundrel, inviting him not to speak anymore. Fabian had nothing to object to. He set up his classmate. Jin Tian turned to the director, clarifying his opinion about what happened and whether his name was feared. The director urged not to provoke, but said that he would not tolerate this in his school. Fabian was expelled from school and banned from taking exams for 3 years. A document on this will be drawn up this evening. Classmates and the teacher rejoiced, believing that the hero was lucky. Uncle knew that Director Fei would not ignore this. Yu Zhenjin is sure that Jin Tian won't do that again. His uncle reassured Fabian, saying that it was only a 3-year ban, and he would be able to go to college. Fabian instantly moved away from his uncle, shouting that he should not reveal this. With a crazed look, he aimed at his uncle, aiming to eliminate Jin Tian. Evening came and events unfolded in the cafe. Classmates and teacher celebrated the end of the exam and Jin's victory Tian over the frantic Fabian. They happily enjoyed the carrot juice, celebrating their victory. Suddenly someone rang the phone. It was Yu's phone Zhanjin, and she asked everyone to make less noise, explaining that her father was calling. The father began to express his displeasure, loudly asking why she had not been home for so long, and what she was even doing here. Yu was upset. Zhanjin told her father that she would be right back and hung up. The excited girl was preparing to leave, feeling guilty before her father, who was expecting her. The hero decided that in this case it was better for everyone to go home. From what Jin heard, Tian concluded that Yu Zhanjian is afraid of her father, and he wondered about her family circumstances, not remembering her talking about it before. Late in the evening, he went somewhere on his bicycle. After all, he wanted to know more about Yu Zhanjian. In the end, she helped him a lot. Suddenly, someone in a cool car moved towards him. The blinding light of the headlights blinded the hero, and he tried to determine who it was. It turned out to be Fabian, who was signaling to Jin Tian because he was waiting for him. He did this in order to eliminate it by pressing the gas pedal at full power. The car was heading straight towards the guy with amazing speed. The alarmed hero asked the system to make an exchange and provide something that would use up all his points but save him. The system replied that this did not present any difficulties for it and began the exchange. After the exchange, a powerful lightning strike erupted, visible for many kilometers around. Lightning struck the hero, leaving only his silhouette visible. But this did not stop Fabian, and he continued to move, determined to see the hero die. Due to the lightning strike, many small lightning bolts sparkled around the hero. Seeing what Jean has become Tion, Fabian was stunned, his face expressing horror and anger. After all, he was not going to allow the scoundrel to leave with a grudge, and gathering all his strength into a fist, he sought revenge for the attempted murder. Having broken the glass, he was going to punish the scoundrel. With fear in his eyes, Fabian watched as Jean Tion punished him. Jean Tion literally threw the scoundrel into the air several tens of meters, like a feather. The stunned classmate fell to the ground, screaming in pain. The hero was glad that he had finally defeated this scoundrel, and asked the system to leave Fabian an idiot for life. Meanwhile, it turned out that Jean Tion owes the system, since he now has -1 point on his account. Not paying attention, the hero left the scene. He was amazed at how powerful his supernatural ability was, but the system warned him not to exaggerate. Now his ability score has increased by 1 unit. Sometime later, the day came when the results of the final exams would be announced. Li Chang blamed his classmate for failing the exam, claiming that he did not let him cheat. Yu came to the defense of her classmate Zhanjin, claiming that he was innocent of anything, and that Li Chang's failure was due to his own failures. Meanwhile, Li Chang continued to try to intimidate his classmates. The bully could not understand what the problem was, because today he was just scaring. Even the classmate himself did not see anything special in this, because it was just a small summer homework. Suddenly there was a cry that Li Chang should do his homework himself. The scoundrel did not immediately realize who dared to say such a thing, and began to find out from those around him who was the author of these words. With surprise they realized that it was Jean Tion, new to the class. Chang's summer homework. The surprised bully retreated, declaring that he would do everything himself. Jean Tion also warned him that if he saw bullying again, he would break both his legs. The hooligans fled in horror, because no one wanted to be left without legs. A smart classmate thanked his friend for his help. Now he will only have to deal with his summer homework. The hero gave his friend advice to be strong and not rely on others, because he is graduating next summer. Also suggested that he go somewhere tonight. After this, Jean Tion turned to Yu Zhanjin to find out the exam results and her progress. The girl happily handed him his report card, saying that he had passed the exam much better. According to the level of training, he was in second place, judging by the assessment. He realized with satisfaction that Fabian seemed to have lost quite handsomely. Fabian realized that security was approaching him, who had found test papers and evidence of bribery in his house, and he lost his mind. His mother came to beg to be expelled from school. At that time, Yu Zhanjin understood that not everyone could survive such a blow. Wherever the struggle for power develops, it only brings disaster in the end, and even if Fabian were not crazy, he would still lose. With interest, the girl also asked the hero what he was doing this summer, and the guy decided to sign up for training. He was going to study hard until the end of the year and enter a prestigious university. His goal is to earn respect for himself and provide his father with a better life. As it turned out, Yu Zhanjin also attended paid classes, and they planned to do it together. Sometime later, the first day of Wu Jin's course began Tion, and he hoped that this would help him expand his knowledge. He showed up to class where he met a new teacher who planned to teach their classes during the summer. Unfortunately, the hero quickly realized that these classes were no different from school. Suddenly, someone present handed him a note. The deskmate said that this was a note for Jean Tion. Initially, he thought it was a joke, because it was only the first day, and he had already met someone he knew. The note said that someone was interested in him. A girl with pink hair passed a note, expressing her love for the main character. The guy immediately felt that what was happening did not impress him, and that there would always be something strange in this class. He loves to study. Learning loves him. Otherwise, everyone is a monster, the hero thought. Suddenly, the system notified the hero that he should contact this girl. After secretly sharing his attraction to someone, the hero stated that he did not want to be in two relationships at the same time, but the system asked him not to worry about it, emphasizing that this girl was not ordinary and her qualities should be checked. The hero immediately drew attention to that same girl to evaluate her characteristics. Looking at her, he saw the following indicators: intelligence 7 units, physical strength 9 units, spirit 5 units, luck 3 units, as well as 2 abilities, including a second-level cat. This ability surprised the hero, and he said to himself, wondering what kind of cat the second level was. Classes ended, and everyone began to put away their things. Meanwhile, Jin Tian was waiting for the mysterious girl at the exit of the classroom. He turned to her with a desire to talk. To her surprise, the girl replied that she agreed, since she was expecting him. Together they headed somewhere, and at this time Yu Zhenjin watched them. She couldn't believe it and wanted to know who this girl was. A few minutes later, events unfolded in the park. Jin Tian wanted to know what she wanted from him, but the girl was indignant that he didn't even ask her name, but was already asking such questions. Peering at the hero, the mysterious girl admitted that she fell in love with him at first sight. The hero withdrew his hand, saying that this was not required, since they were both mediums, and there was no need to beat around the bush. Hearing this, the girl was surprised by his straightforwardness and decided to tell everything straight. Her name was Chimiao, she was a second-level medium, and she invited the hero to join their organization. For Jin Tian, all this sounded like empty words, and he noted that persuasion was meaningless. Suddenly, the girl blocked his way, declaring that she would not leave until he made her a promise. The hero objected, pointing out that if he agreed to every invitation to such strange organizations, this would lead to many incomprehensible situations, and he advised her to leave, as it was useless. Using his magical ability, he tried to speed up his steps in order to quickly move away from the girl. Having literally passed through her, he warned that he was now leaving. This outraged the girl, since she once saved his life, and now he expresses his gratitude in this way. Turning around, Jin Tian wanted to know when she saved him. Chimiao decided to prove this to the hero, after which she began her transformation with lightning speed. Thus, she turned into a cat and asked if the hero now believed her. He was amazed because he did not know that this cat turned out to be a medium, and he also could not understand what this girl wanted from him. When suddenly, as if out of nowhere, appeared Zhenjin, who ran to Jin Tian. At this time, the cat walked around the hero and rubbed against his leg. Jealous Yu Zhenjin wanted to know where the girl who followed the hero was. The cat at the same time asked Jin Tian doesn't tell Yu Zhenjin about what happened here. The guy immediately began to make excuses, saying that there was no girl here, just him and the cat. That's when Yu Zhenjin saw a bunch of clothes scattered on the floor and realized that something was wrong here.